Hi there, this is a video to show how to make a scarf using a loom. I'm specifically making this video today for my mom, but if anybody gets some help out of it, I'd be really happy about that. So first off, what I'm going to use is this loom here. This is a Nifty Knitter brand loom. It's got 24 hooks or pegs, 12 on each side. Plus there are some like anchor pegs, and I'll explain how those help later. While we're making the scarf, we won't use these pegs here. But there's a lot of different brands that make these. You can get them from like a Joann's or a Hobby Lobby or a craft store. I know Boy is another brand. So this is the loom we're going to use. The supplies you need are a loom, some yarn. What I'm going to use is just your basic red heart yarn. I'm going to use 2 colors because I'm going to use 2 strands. Scissors, which will come more in handy later. Crochet hook, which again will come more in handy later. And a loom knitting hook. A lot of these kits come with these hooks, but they're really thin, so I would suggest Knitting Board makes this one that's ergonomic, and from my local Joann's you can get these for $2.99. You can probably get them online too. I know there are some people I've seen also that go to like Lowe's or Home Depot, and there are these kind of hooks in the tool section. But this is my favorite kind. It's soft. You know, not squishy soft, but I don't know, it's solid, but it helps from wrist strain. I know when I tried to use the little thin ones, they don't work that great. Now, the kind of yarn you use will make a difference. One of my favorite kinds of yarn to use is this kind, and see how it's thicker. It's more of a number 5 yarn. This is Bernat Softy Chunky is this brand. When I use this kind of yarn, I just use 1 strand of it. But when I use like a worsted weight yarn or a number 4, which is like your typical red heart, I use 2 strands at a time. If you only use 1, then your scarf is not going to probably be as thick as you might like, but you can use pretty much any kind of yarn. One thing I would recommend is if you use, there are those specialty yarns that are like fuzzy, or I think I've heard them also called eyelash. I would pair that with a strand of just a worsted weight. Otherwise it's kind of hard to work with. But for today we're just going to make a basic scarf using 2 strands of yarn. So what you do is you just pull from 2 skeins of yarn, and you treat it like it was 1 strand. So I'm going to get my yarn, and I've got this white towel here to kind of help with visibility to show you what I'm doing. Let's see, I've got 2 strands of yarn. I'm just holding them together like they're 1. The first thing you're going to do is make a slip knot, and the way I do that is I just take my finger and I wrap the yarn around it 2 times, and then I just pull the back yarn over the front, and then the front over that, and then you've got a slip knot. And I'll do that again. Just pull it over twice. And it makes a slip knot. And what you do is you put that slip knot on to one of the anchor pegs and just tighten it up. And the reason you do a slip knot is because if you did a regular knot, it'd be hard to get unhooked, because right now this is just kind of going to hang on to your yarn for you and kind of anchor it for you. Later on you're going to release it and weave it into your scarf. And I'm pulling some yarn out of the skeins here. Okay, so we have this like this, and then this is called, I think it's just a basic figure 8 stitch, and so you're going to take that yarn, and I'm going to go slow, and just kind of ignore that first, this guy up here, and just see, go between these two, and wrap it around, and then over here, and wrap it around. And you're going to do that with each peg, you know, where you're going between and wrap it around. And wrap it around. And see how it's making a figure 8? And then I'll kind of take my finger and hold on as I move down. And then kind of push it down to the bottom of the peg a little bit. And then see, you're just holding on to your yarn. And those two strands pretty much become like having one strand. And you're just doing the same thing for each peg. And I chose these Christmas colors for a reason. It's because my mom loves Christmas and I love my mom. So since I'm making this video for my mom, I'm using her colors. Now if I wasn't showing you how to do this, I probably would just have this down like that. And the hardest part to me is this first pass where you're doing what's called a cast on. And so there's our last peg, and so you wrap it around. Now see how that's around all the pegs, kind of like in a figure 8. Now if I were to just let go of this, this whole thing's going to come unraveled. So now we have to go back the way we came. So I'm just going to do the same thing. See, here's the one I ended with, and so I'm going to go between these two pegs, and I'm going to go backwards. Wrap it around. See, like it's an 8, and then I'm going to go on this peg and wrap it around, and then just keep going around the pegs in a figure 8. I'm going to go slow. And I'm going to use my finger to kind of hold this because I need to pull a little bit more yarn out of these skeins. If I wasn't holding on to that, this would just come all unraveled. And then just keep going in that figure 8. And then I kind of keep using my finger because I have had it before where I've accidentally let go and the whole thing came unraveled, which isn't really a big deal once you get past your first casting on, which is what's going to secure this to the loom. Okay, I need to pull some more yarn. I'm just pulling it out of the skeins. And see, I'm using my thumb to hold that. And so then you're on your last. And see, it's all on here. Now, what you can use this for is just to wrap the yarn around, just to kind of hold it for you. And so that's what I'm going to do. I just wrapped it around this guy up here just to hold my yarn. That's all I'm using it for. And then I'm just going to hold on to it. I've got my thumb on it down here, just holding it. And so as you can see, there's two. The yarn is, you know, two. Now we're pretending we've got 2 strands, so really there's 4 strands of yarn on here, but we're pretending like our 2 together are 1. So now what we're going to do is, trying to figure out how to hold this best, is we're going to take our loom hook and we're going to take the bottom 2 pieces of yarn and put them over the top 2. And you can do that by putting your hook under the yarn, or I like to kind of come from the middle and go down. And then the first one's going to be kind of a little harder, but you pull it. And it's the way I'm having to hold this for the camera is making it. But see, then it looks like there's one on here. I'm going to try to hold this so you can see it better. But you just take the bottom, pull it over the top. I hope you can see that. Take the bottom, pull it over the top. Bottom, pull it over the top. And that's what it looks like on the top. And you just keep doing that. And this is really hurting the way I'm having to hold this. So I'm going to flip it around and see if that helps. Hope you can still see that. See, I'm just going and pulling that bottom one over the top. So you kind of just, you know, twist your wrist a little bit. And then this one down here doesn't have anything to pull over the top. There's only just the two strands. So you just leave that one alone. And so there's one whole side done. So now I'm going to flip it to the other side. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just flip that bottom over the top. The two on the bottom go over the two on the top. If you were just using one strand of yarn, you'd just have one strand you're pulling over. I apologize for the traffic noise if you can hear it. Let's see. And then you can let go. You don't have to hold on to the yarn over here anymore. And then just push those down. So I just pushed all of it down. So now it's sturdy, it's on the loom, you don't have to worry about it falling off. It's just that first casting on is, to me, the most difficult part. So next I'm going to go ahead and do another row. When you're doing this yourself, it won't be quite as awkward as it is for me, because I'm trying to hold this in a way that I wouldn't naturally hold it. So now you've got that on, it looks like this, and you're just going to turn around and do that again once. So we're going to do the figure 8 around all the pegs again. And you can see right here's the one we ended with. So we're going to start over here. You're always going to, and I'll just show you. So we'll just try to get this. So you're going to wrap it around and then go to this peg and do the same thing. And see how it ends up looking kind of like a figure 8. And I try to keep it a little bit towards the top of the pegs, because you're going to be taking those bottom strands of yarn and pulling them over the top ones. So see again how it's one up top, one up bottom. And I'm just pulling some more yarn out of the skeins. One of these it's coming out really easy and I'm not having to pull, but the other one I am. So then I'm just going to keep going around in the figure 8. then we're coming up on our last peg. Just wrap it around, and there's your, looks like a figure 8. And then I'm going to use this little, I actually prefer to use the peg at the very end as my anchor because I think it's easier to hold. And I'm just going to wrap it around a couple times and then just hold it with my thumb. Again, I'm holding this thing in a way that I don't normally hold it. And so we've got 2 strands on again. And so I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to take and the 2 bottom and put it over the top. And to me it's just easier to go down instead of try to pull up. But it's just a personal preference. They also call this knitting over, because this is knitting, it's just you're using a loom instead of needles. When I get done with this row, I'm going to set this down on the table so I'm not holding it so awkwardly. So there's one side done. So now I'm going to knit over the other side. Oops. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube. Like, if you don't like my style, you can always go to another one. And see, here again, just like the last time, there's a peg that you won't have to knit over. And then you just push it all down. And you can't see it quite start coming out of the bottom yet. But if I was sitting in my living room doing this, oops, just undid my slip knot. Oh well. If I was sitting in my living room doing this, I'm going to try to hold it more naturally like I normally would. But I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to keep going around in a figure 8 around the pegs. I hope you can still see it. Hold it with my finger while I pull out some more yarn. And just keep going in a figure 8. And there I'm to my last one. I'm just going to wrap it around a couple times. Excuse me, that's my cell phone. Let me mute it. And then see, I'm just kind of holding it with my finger down here. And then I'm going to knit over from the bottom again. And I'll do a few rows so you can see it and get used to it. If you don't need this many rows, you can fast forward. Oops. And then again, we don't knit over here. That's you always end. And on this side, I'm gonna knit over. And there's all of them again, and then you just use your thumb or whatever, just push it all down. And it's starting to come out the bottom a little bit. So then I'm going to turn my loom around, because I always like to start from this side and go this way. It's just your own personal preference. And then I accidentally undid my slip knot, so this is kind of just hanging there. So then we're going to do it again with the figure 8 around the pegs. Holding with my finger. Normally what I do with my yarn, they come in the skeins like this, but I have a yarn winder, and I take and put my yarn on it and make little cakes of yarn. There's videos on that too if you want to see what I'm talking about. And then it just makes a nice, easy center pull cake of yarn. You don't have to sit and keep pulling the yarn out. But just, that's again another preference thing. So we're to the last peg, and so I'm just gonna wrap this around here a couple times just to hold my yarn for me, and hold it with my finger. And again, knit over. When I'm doing this sitting on the couch, you know, I've got my hand resting on this table. I normally have a pillow in my lap and I rest it on there. And then sometimes between rows I'll sit and flex my hands because I don't want to end up with like carpal tunnel. But this hook helps. And then again, that's the one we started with, so it's already only got just the one on there, so we don't have to worry about knitting over. And it may not look like it, but it's always a different peg each time that you start with. It's just because since I turn the loom around again, it looks like it's the same peg, but really it's not. So, boy, the phone just doesn't want to not ring, does it? Okay, sorry for that pause. I had to go answer the phone. So, see, now it's really starting to come out the bottom. You can see it. So I'll do another one. And like I said, if you don't need to see this many rows, you can fast forward. And so we're going to do it again. See, you can see it's coming off of this peg right here. And so this will be the peg that you don't have to worry about doing the knit over, because this is our starting peg. And like when we get to the end and I flip it around, it'll end up being the peg down here. But anyway, I'm rambling, so you just start wrapping around the pegs in a figure 8. And once you get the hang of it, you'll be moving through really quickly. I mean, I've done so many of these now, it's like I can, sometimes I don't even have to look. Just like people who crochet, you know, you get so used to doing it and comfortable with it. But my first few scarves, I didn't think I was ever going to get done with them. So we're to our last peg. So I'm just going to wrap around this anchor peg and then hold with my finger, and then yarn over. And you're just pulling the bottom over the top, and again, you don't do anything with that first one. And you can tell because there's not, you know, two things. This is going to end up being a really pretty Christmas scarf. Oops. And then sometimes once I'm starting to be able to see it, I'll kind of like just tug it a little bit. Let's see, you can see. And then, we've done several rows, so I think if you need more help, you can just rewind. So, and then you just push it down, and then see, you can see where it's really starting to come out the bottom. And I have a couple of scarves that are in process. One of them is this one, and this is one that I'm making with that softy chunky yarn that's like a number 5, so it's thick, and so I only need one strand. See how nice and thick that is? Hopefully you can see it on the loom, because the color of the yarn is pretty close to the color of the loom. But the reason I have this one is I wanted to show you, you know, how we tied that slip knot at the very beginning. So this scarf I've been working on for quite some time, so it's pretty long. Well, down here, there's my slip knot from when I first started this scarf. So what you would do with this, you know, if you pull that, then since it's a slip knot, it just comes right out. You would weave this in so that you don't see it anymore. And the way you do that is you just take a crochet hook, and since this is a pretty thick yarn, I'm going to use this, what is this, a J I believe, 6mm hook, and use it to help me weave this in. Now, one thing I do that I know, like professional knitters, they don't tie knots. I feel like I worked really hard on this scarf and I don't want it to come unraveled, so I tie a knot here and there, because when I wash it I don't want it to come undone, and so it's just really up to you. But basically I just take and I put the crochet hook through the bottom, and I'm just going to pull the yarn. See, it was at the top, now it's at the bottom. I'm just going to take and weave it using my crochet hook to help me pull it. See how I'm just weaving it, come up from the bottom, pull it through. Make sure you're doing it right. That's what happens when you're trying to film yourself, you mess up. And I'm just gonna keep, okay, there we go. So you just kind of keep weaving it through your work. To me, there's really no right or wrong way to do it. Now at this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot. So I'm just going to pick a spot and pull my yarn through if I can get it to cooperate with me. And then I'm going to tie a knot. And that is completely up to you. See, this is going to be a knot. I just pull it kind of tight and just hide it within the, see that, and that's hidden in there. You can't even tell there's a knot down there. And then I'm just going to keep weaving. Just taking my crochet hook, and if you had thick enough yarn you could probably just use your fingers even. And I'm going to tie one more knot. But I mean, technically I guess you don't really even, they say you don't have to tie a knot. I just don't trust that. So here's my other knot, maybe. And then I just got the knot kind of hidden. And then I'm just gonna cut the leftover. But see, now I've hidden that yarn. You can't even see it's there anymore. Now let me show you how to get a scarf off of the loom. And this is the last. I have a scarf that I just finished that's ready to be removed from the loom. So this one is all the way completed. I haven't woven in my anchor one yet. So when you get to the end, when you get your scarf as long as you want it, I think it's totally personal preference. I think 6 feet or 72 inches is like, you know, a common number that I hear. For me, like when I'm using this Bernat Softy Chunky, I just use 3 skeins. If you want to make a cowl, you can make it shorter. If you want to make it really long, you can make it longer. It's totally up to you. So when you get it to the length you want it, make sure that you have at least a little bit of yarn left. See, I've just got like just this little pile. And so this is, I'm done. I'm ready to take it off the loom. So the first thing you do is we're going to take one side and move it to this side. That's the first thing we're going to do. So you just use your hook to pick up one side and bring it over to the other side. And then you just take and knit over one last time. And I usually have to make sure I hold on good, use my fingers, but we're just taking one side, putting it over to the other side, and then knitting over. Whoops. And then you can pull the scarf, you know, to tighten it up. But see now how there's nothing on this side for those two? You just keep doing that all the way across. You just move it from one side to the other. And then take that bottom one and knit over the top one. That kind of locks it in place, and then I just pull. To just keep moving it over. Oops. And see, even if you accidentally let go, you can just pick it up. And this just works the same whether or not you're using, you know, one strand like with this thicker yarn, or like on the Christmas scarf. If you're using 2 strands of yarn at a time, you're just treating it like it's one strand. You're just holding them together. It's a lot easier than it sounds, and I just keep dropping my stitches. It's because this particular yarn is really soft. Okay, we're down to the last one. And that one's real loose because that's where the rest of my yarn is. So I just kind of tighten it, pull it down a little bit. Now see how everything is only on one side? And then here's the rest of my yarn. So here's where I'm starting from. One thing that when you're loom knitting, if I were just to take this off the loom now and put each one of these into each other, this side of my scarf is not going to be the same size as the other end of my scarf. So I put an extra stitch, and I'll show you how I do that. So again, and I hope that this shows up good, you're going to need a crochet hook. I think I'll go ahead and use this J hook again just because it's big and I think maybe it'll be easier to see. So here's my, well, let me get it in the frame. Got my working yarn, you know, my yarn that I've been knitting with this whole time. The first thing you're going to do, you're going to start from the peg where your working yarn is. And then just use your fingers, or you can try to stick the crochet hook down in there and take it off the peg and put it on your crochet hook. Then take that working yarn and wrap it around the hook. Whoops. See this soft yarn, it wants to pull off, so I'm going to have to try to be really careful. And pull, use your hook to pull the yarn through that peg you just took off. Did you see how I did that? Then I'm going to take the next thing off the peg, put my crochet hook through it, and then pull that loop through the loop that's on the hook. And then take that working yarn again and wrap it around your hook and pull it through. See, what that's doing is creating an extra stitch between each one of these. So we're going to do that for every peg. So I'm going to take the next one off, put it on my hook, pull it through, then take that working yarn, wrap it around my hook, and pull it through. And then I'm going to go to the next one and do the same thing each time. Just using my fingers to put that loop of yarn over, and then I'm going to, this keeps wanting to pull off because I'm going so slow and this yarn is so soft. Okay, give me one moment. Okay, so pull that through, and then take the working yarn again, wrap it around the hook, and pull that through the loop you just made. And there's another one popping off. But see, they stay in their loops, so it's not that big of a deal if it pops off. So I'm going to take that loop. See how there's two on my hook now? And pull it through, and I kind of use my fingers a lot to help me hold it. And they just continue to pop off the pegs. Like I said, it's because this yarn is just so soft. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to kind of just stretch it. Go to my next peg. My towel and everything keeps wanting to move out of frame. And then they all just came off. I'm just going to leave them off. Put my extra. And then go to my next one. Put it on my hook. Pull it through. And then I'm going to make an extra stitch. And then take my next one, pull it through and then make an extra stitch. And my next one. Pull it through. And my next one. I'm going to stretch it a little bit again. And then this is the last one here. So put it on my hook and then pull it through. And then this time you can pull the yarn all the way through. My yarn is extra long, so I'm going to cut the other side. And then just pull that all the way through. Then you can just lift your loom off. And see, the scarf is off the loom. And then you just take and weave this other end in and tie knots or however you want to do it, just like I showed you how I weaved it in on the pink scarf. So this is a completed scarf, except for I have to weave my ends in. So yeah, that's how you make a scarf. I hope that I didn't go too fast or too slow. Like I said, there's a lot of videos on YouTube that show how to do this, and I just really hope this helps out somebody, and I hope you have fun looming, and good luck with your scarf. And if you make a scarf, let me know how it went, and I'm starting to ramble again and I don't know what I want to say, so I'm just going to let you go, and good luck. Bye.